Hey guys, I'm Bob Saget. Hookers and cocaine. Hey guys, I'm Doug.
And I'm Theo.
And today we're going to talk about adjunct therapy. Is that what it is? I didn't know what it meant either, but it's been brought to my attention that while I have white girls with nose rings telling me what stars make me sad on my Instagram feed, I also have all kinds of physical therapy that is meant to make me feel better about the damage I'm doing to my body through my training. All of our favorite professional athletes who have enough of a personality to be on camera, projecting some sort of, image to consumers, have all been using these techniques. And they've all been talking about well, this is the thing that made me win a gold medal, or this is the thing that helps me recover. And without it, I wouldn't be where I'm at. It's the same thing as, the jacked guys that are talking about how a certain supplement made them look that way when we all know it's hypertrophy and steroids. How did you get here? Hard work and a little bit of a boost.
The majority of this content, it's so sensationalized now because the research that we are exposed to, it's garbage. It's presented in a way where it's making us feel like, one, we're kind of jealous because we don't have it, so we need to buy that. And that one product is going to make all the difference. But then you look at how many athletes are reporting just oil and water, complete different products that are saying essentially the same thing. Like, those athletes are in the same sport, but yet they're all claiming that this one thing is making all the difference. So just know that marketing is a real thing, and the predatory research does exist now. There are ways to manipulate the findings, and the stuff that we do in the clinic that we follow in terms of practicing at a practice act of hey, do no harm. I'm not going to just scroll on YouTube and Instagram for some technique and then apply it. I need to understand, I have a license, I need to do no harm. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there, and we will use ice, we will use electrical stimulation, we use all of these other tools, but we would never just solely use that, and it's not across the board. So
you're looking at all of these things as a therapeutic boost to an actual structural change you're trying to elicit, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to facilitate healing. It's all what it comes down to is, if you're getting 4 hours of sleep and you're burning it down every night, and you're drunk every night, and your diet's horrible, your nutrition's off, this stuff is worthless. So you're not going to get anything out of it. So these are the potholes in the road. I've heard an analogy about nutrition and supplements, and how the pavement is nutrition and the supplements are the potholes, and this is exactly that. These are very, very tiny, tiny potholes. You need to take care of that other stuff first, and then also make sure you're not just trying to self-treat something that's a big issue, because there are issues where you need to have a provider, an actual doctor, assess it and make sure you're not just making yourself worse.
If these were to fall into tranches or columns, right? When we talk about these these therapeutic things, it says
novelties.
Yeah, myofascial release is one of them, right? Mm-hmm. So rollers, holy shit.
You're not releasing myofascial with a foam roller. Sorry, that's not happening.
Way too deep, right?
You'd have to spend years almost to deform tissue, because if it's that easy, then how the hell are we sitting in chairs all day and not having the same effect? So yeah, I mean, our bodies aren't that vulnerable.
But does it release adhesions? I know that's the argument, right? It's to say, well, there's knots in my muscles, and it's releasing those knots. No,
yeah,
not a thing.
It's a neurologic change. So sometimes, and you can even say the foam rolling by itself, or the foam rolling with the vibration added, the vibration seems to stimulate mechanoreceptors and neurotransmitters, and it does create a short-term effect where it feels good. Most people feel kind of good after they foam roll. That's fine. I mean, there's probably something to compressing and releasing, allowing circulation to kind of penetrate that area. So it gets blown way out of proportion, and just know you're not changing, you're not permanently changing anything. Some people just enjoy it. They use it as a form of recovery. And
does it allow for better recovery?
It can, yeah, and it's subjective. So
it
can. I think if you foam roll and then perform some sort of static stretch, or maybe you foam roll and then you jump on an Airdyne and just do a very light flush, done. That's perfect. That's an optimal way to recover.
Okay, and essentially what you're really doing is just trying to remove some lactic acid that would be setting it on the muscles.
Now we're talking about lactic acid, and now it's a whole other. We won't even get into that.
Well, see,
yeah, so it's.
I'm here to bring you all the common misconceptions of athletes.
So yeah, subjectively, if it's low threat, some of this stuff, just try it out and see how you feel.
So all the things that we're going to talk about today are generally low threat.
Most are.
The things that
you can die. You can die in a cryo tank. That has happened.
Well, we're not going to talk about cryo because we're not rich fucks. In general, minus cryo though, like we're talking about pretty low threat stuff like saunas and steam rooms.
Yeah.
If they're included in your gym package, then like cool. Russian gangsters have been seeing the athletic benefits of that technique for hundreds of years. These are very expensive techniques in general, and they take quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
I mean,
there is some there's skill. There is skill in just assessing should I or shouldn't I. Like the deductive reasoning has to be the most important part because you could apply electrical stimulation and have a pacemaker or have history of cancer or put it over an open wound. Like there are these contraindications that we know. Like we're not going to do this. We're not going to put heat on somebody in certain situations or ice. So, if you have a question, if you have to kind of ask yourself that question, maybe you need to lean in and kind of ask a professional and just make sure you're not putting yourself in a position where like now you did injure yourself somehow.
I think that it's worth noting, and I will make this commentary and you can like judge me all you want, but like a placebo that works isn't a placebo, right? So if you're using any of these methods and you feel better after, even if it's only in your head.
Yeah, I mean just that has been shown. Like if I'm talking to somebody and like, hey, it's okay, like whatever, just touching, there's like a 30%.
I'm healed by the power of Grayskull.
It is. I mean, there have been stories of people forgetting to turn on the ultrasound machine and like it's on, but they forget to hit start, and they're treating, and they realize it afterwards, and the person's like, oh man, I feel great, So it does happen, but hearing a pop, like if you manipulate somebody's spine and they hear a pop, they will hands down say they feel better than the person that gets manipulated and doesn't hear a pop. So yeah, there is a lot of that.
What we're really talking to people about are different methods that they can pay attention to their own body without generally consulting a professional for paid time and feeling a sense of catharsis that they've been addressing an issue, right?
Yeah, I brought a lot of this up. Do you want to check it out, see how you feel?
Yeah, I'm all about circus tricks.
All right, so here's the spread, and we'll start with sort of the most easily accessible and kind of like least threat, tape. So
is that Kinesio Tape?
This is a form of, this is Kinesio Tape. So there's so many brands, I don't even know what I have anymore.
Is it possible for me to compete in a CrossFit competition without KT tape all over my body?
It's not. So you see colors, you see patterns. It's just tape. It is just tape, so it does have this little elastic component. And what we have found is in certain situations, if you can place this over an area where there's like maybe pain, that's pretty much the only thing it's shown to kind of genuinely help with, is just taking away that signal. So whether it's just increasing the capacity for blood flow, or if it's just very lightly desensitizing that area, I can place a little piece of tape maybe on an area. After I did a bunch of other things to treat it, I can kind of send the person on their way with that tape. So I have not taped anybody in a very long time, if that says anything about tape, but you can also use these as kind of like pseudo support mechanisms too. Some people will place strips on their posterior shoulder, they'll place them on their back, and it's almost like a reminder if you're falling out of position or if you just kind of start to slouch, that stretch reflex just reminds you to kind of bring those shoulders back. You will see some techniques done where, you kind of try to support the shoulder or so forth, but like with a rolled ankle, any kind of joint stability, like taping your knee for joint stability, just wear a brace. Like this is gonna stretch, it's gonna give out way, way quicker than you think. Just don't use this for stability, but you will see this everywhere. It's very common. So compression would be the next thing, and a lot of people, again, it's subjective, so some people hate it, some people like it.
My wave tight?
Sure. This one is for the thigh, and after a strain, so if somebody like strained their hamstring, perfect way to give them an edge to take the pain away, because you're taking that tendency for the tissues to kind of be pulled and stretched on. So this one is more of like a rehab therapeutic type product because it has this interwoven seam. You can kind of see the way the fibers created. It's more for, you had an injury, wear this early on to let us kind of start the healing process. Other brands are making products for the entire leg, the entire arm, and they're kind of claiming it's helpful for recovery. Compression is a thing, it is out there. You guys have probably already heard of it or seen it. You probably already know if you like it or not. So, if you are wearing compression, I'd say go for the full sleeve. If it's something where you're rucking, if the mileage is high, if you're on your feet for a long time.
It's increasing circulation, right?
Yeah, so you're helping venous return. So you are decreasing the resistance on the way back. So you're allowing, like, the blood is going to pool in the extremities the longer your heart is above that area. So this is just dissipating that. It's just allowing your body to kind of keep blood flowing. So yeah, some people are training up and they need an edge because they need to keep the blood flowing. Sure. The next thing, scraping. You guys have probably heard of this. And these were the original two. So these were the initial brands.
Is that Graston hooks?
Graston and A-Stim. And what you see now is you search scraping on Amazon and it is just like, you know, your phone freezes. There's so many brands now.
I mean,
and
this set of tools was like $2,000.
Oh, this was way more.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Dude, it blew my mind. When I saw the kit, it looked like something from like an Eli Roth movie. Just like roll it out, torture tools.
It's the Dexter kit. You know, he like rolls it out. So yeah, you know, you can feel the difference. Like you hold that one and then you hold that one. It's definitely a difference. And if you even just look at the edge, this one,
That's sharp.
Yeah, this is a lot sharper. So when you talk about like IA-Stim, which is instrument assisted, it's pretty much the entire world of scraping other than A-Stim. A-Stim was the only one that kind of patented that edge. So the way I would use A-Stim is a lot different than the way I would use Graston. And acutely, if somebody came in, I would not go aggressive. Chronically, somebody came in, Doug said he had like a little bit of an elbow thing. If it was for 3 to 6 months and he's just been dealing with it, it's nagging, I know that there's some degenerative tissue in there. I want to get in there and loosen that up. That's what this does. It damages the tissue in such a way that it's not a threat. It's your body recognizes it as stress. It's good stress. It pumps in blood flow. The tissues start to heal. One thing with scraping is if you do it right and you're not just overdoing it and just crushing yourself every day, you can go and do an activity after and it actually feels really good. So, you know, I would never do these every day to spit. A-Stim would be twice a week, typically a day or two off in between. I'm not doing this exclusively and I'm not going aggressive. You should not look like you were hit by a truck when you have scraping done.
Bruising is bad.
Bruising is very bad because now you just damaged healthy tissue. So now your body has to heal that in addition to whatever it was you were trying to treat. So you'll hear IA-Stim all the time. Just don't be like the person in the gym with the butter knife, like trying to dig out your knee. I mean, if your knee's bothering you, go get it checked out.
Those people do exist.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times. So what I would do, I mean, honestly, this would just be like a quick kind of easy way to show you guys what it would look like. If I were using the technique that we use, that we're trained, try to treat the entire extremity, not just spot treat. And then it's kind of global, so largest surface area to smallest. Just for the sake of time, I'll kind of show you what I would do. It's very light. He's kind of got some elbow issues. Not a lot of pressure at all. The edge really does the work. And then I would go in the opposite direction. And he's got some stuff on the inside of the elbow.
That's it? That's like this is literally all I'm gonna. Well, there you go. I feel that.
So I'm not pressing any harder.
It's like 3 to 6 years of irritation, not 3 to 6 months. So like this is chronic. There it is a little. Yeah, it's not hard. It's just like a yuck.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. There's
yeah. So right around the tendon, he's got a nice little spot there.
I may or may not have fallen on an escalator running up the downside. Banged it up a little bit.
Say he was having an issue with pull-ups. I could put him in that position, just have him grip, and I can scrape in the same position, or you kind of like lightly load it and have him move through different ranges. There's a lot of things we can do with it, but it is something you just have to really be careful because the way...
So, IA-Stim?
Yep.
Real? Not real?
Oh, it's real. It's a thing. You can overdo it though, for sure.
So it's best to go to a practitioner.
Yeah. If you're training and then afterwards you feel like you need to do that, there's probably something we need to check off first, and that's probably like your overtraining. Look at your hydration, nutrition, sleep, recovery. This is like physiologically changing the structure of the tissue, and the way they describe it is, yeah, like you do have these little adhesions. If we looked at your tendon under an ultrasound, we would probably see some holes and some gaps where instead of the tissue being lined up this way, that's kind of mangled. Yeah, you're remodeling that tissue, and then you're going and loading it to reinforce that. So there is a method to it. It's not just like haphazard, just going to scrape everything and do it real aggressive and real fast. Like you are adding other elements of treatment to this. Okay. So now when you talk about changing the structure of the tissue, we'll kind of bypass the cup real quick. But yeah, like the voodoo band, the mobilization band has been around for a long time. You guys have probably seen these.
I actually feel like it fixed a lot
Yeah.
of knee pain that I had
Yep.
due to like patellar tendon alignment.
Yeah.
Like it was very helpful for me.
Yeah, so the idea is you're compressing. You can compress a joint, you can compress a muscle stripping, muscle anchoring. These are all kind of like older terms used to do the same thing. So these are just techniques that you're deforming the tissue itself, like you are forcing it to move through a range of motion. So you could wrap an elbow and kind of go through a range of motion. You could wrap an elbow that's like pretty hot and irritated, and then go into rice bucket, nice and controlled. I love that. I'll do that all the time. Like if it's a movement that actually provokes it, I'll kind of wrap the knee, wrap the arm, wherever it is, and then have the person do a very kind of light, slow controlled set scheme. And that's not blood flow restriction. We're not talking about blood flow restriction. I'm not even going to talk about that.
But I mean, ischemia is one of the arguments for it, right?
It is, because you're increasing perfusion, which is blood flow. As soon as you take this off, that area is just going to get flushed out with, fresh blood flow.
That's not BFR.
That is not BFR, and I love it. We use BFR in the clinic every day. Do not use this for blood flow restriction, which would be wrapping way up here. If you see somebody wrapping their elbow and performing a technique, like that's not blood flow restriction.
Okay.
But yeah, very effective, cheap. These are very cheap. I'd say a lot of this stuff, like as you get closer to a selection or an academy or a training event, these start to show up a lot more because you're just giving your body an edge.
I have used the shit out of those.
Yep.
And like, I know it's funny because like for a long time they were saying like, well, it's not really proven, but
It's
like,
anecdote.
yeah, but I mean, it's a
Clinical anecdote.
Yeah.
We live by that. We do a lot of techniques that we know it works. We know the majority of what we're doing, as long as, again, we're not causing harm. If the person's getting better and it's helping them get back to what they need to do, then we can make that decision as a provider. Like, I'm not gonna say as PTs we're chasing all the trends, because that's not how it works. Just using these by themselves is not what we're talking about. Like, these are usually in conjunction with other forms of treatment or training. All right, so the big one, electrical stimulation. You guys have seen this. There are so many types of electrical stimulation that exist now. The main reason for this type of unit is for swelling. It is not for potentiation, for strength. It is for swelling. If an ankle is rolled and there is a significant amount of swelling, if somebody had a surgery, if there's an injury, we use this to help facilitate that kind of muscle activation to wring out the swelling.
Okay.
There are types that you can use at home. A TENS unit, which is more of just like a pain, like chronic pain. An MES, which is more for like muscle re-education, which is if somebody had an injury and there's so much atrophy or so much swelling, we're trying to get that muscle to fire again.
So how do you tell the difference between a TENS, a NIMS, and like the compacts, right? Like what
Yeah.
are we, I mean, they're all generally marketed the same way.
Yep.
And they're always going to be pictured on super fit people who look like they're using them to be more fit.
Of course. Yep. So a TENS unit is going to be the cheapest. That's you can.
That's the one that's going to dial on it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well, they all have like kind of like they'll all have that, but the TENS is like you're just constant humming. It basically blocks the
there's
pain
no
signal.
program.
Yeah, you can. It's like VAs give them out quite a bit. I mean, most shops, like go to Amazon and just search TENS units, and you can buy them for like $10. They're really cheap, but they wear out quick. So if you're just going to that all the time, and even if your pain's very low and you're just constantly using that device, your body adapts to that, and then it's no longer useful. So as you get into like the NMES, like the neuromuscular electrical stimulation, like there's no reason to buy that, because if you're receiving that, you're going to be being treated by somebody using it. Those are expensive. We use those in the clinic for retraining after an ACL repair or like an injury. We use those a lot, but it's never for like healthy tissue. Like healthy tissue, if it's healthy tissue, go squat, go load it. You know, you don't need this. You're not going to get anything else out of it, and that's what we've found. Like this is what you're not you're not being told. Recovery is recovery. Like if you're technically starting to recover and you're still activating those muscles, in my mind, that's not recovery, because the muscles aren't actually recovering. I just don't think it's necessary, and I don't think you're really actually doing anything. And in most cases, the guys that I've talked to who throw these on their lower back and just like their lower back's tight after a session, they feel worse. It's like, well,
Really?
okay, that kind of makes sense though, because you're just, the area's already cooked, and then you're just sending more signal, and you're telling it to keep going when it's probably done.
If you haven't spent $1,000 yet, don't waste it. If you have spent $1,000, what a wise purchase, and I'm glad it's working for you.
All right, cupping. Love cupping. It's one of the only forms of actual decompression that we use. So we're lifting skin, allowing circulation, and after doing several other forms of treatment, loosening an area, manipulating a joint.
This is after you pin, you stretch, you manipulate. You're going to start doing this after that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So loosen the area up, kind of prep it, and then what I like to do, like what we like to do is, load the hamstring and maybe just do some kind of form of like a hip hinge deadlift or shoulder. A lot of good work you can do. Let's just kind of rowing with these cups around the shoulders, kind of moving overhead. So
this is working a lot like voodoo floss, but targeted.
And it's not compression, you're decompressing. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's not comfortable. Like we'll put a few on your elbow and you'll feel it's pressure. It does feel like someone's like kind of ripping your skin, but you don't leave these on very long.
I don't think it's uncomfortable. I've had it done a few times. I mean, it's like you can feel it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, oh, there it is. But in general, it's not bad. I guess what I don't understand, I've always had it done by someone who is a pretty talented bodywork specialist. I've never had crazy bruising or anything, but like most of my friends who end up looking like they, have hickeys all over their
mutilated.
backs.
Yeah. That's an argument. There are two camps, and one is, you don't want to create that dark purple bruise that lasts 5 days, but I think in some cases early on, like if it turns that way quick, that's telling us like, damn, that area is not getting blood flow. So now it is. So what I'll typically do is leave it on for a minute, just let the person just kind of work on some breathing, and then we'll put them in a position where then they can kind of like actively move, and then leave that on for like another minute. So, I mean, rarely we're going into like the 4 to 5 minute time frame. They will have some bruising, but it's typically
so a little bruising isn't bad.
I don't think it is.
Okay.
Like I don't leave them on for 30 minutes or
this
like,
isn't the same thing as bruising that comes from scraping.
No, this is just because it's pressure, like we're decompressing, like that kind of aggressive type of tissue treatment is like you're causing trauma.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just more of just like you're pulling blood flow to the area. So what I'm gonna hit is both areas. We'll do
I need bigger arms.
We'll do the extensors and the flexors and just kind of balance things out.
Oof.
So right away, this one is picking up on some tight tissue, but if he stands there and just kind of bends back and forth, they'll pop off, which is what you want. You put him back on, he kind of moves back and forth.
Look at that. What is that?
Yeah, that's it. So kind of flex your hand down. Just go back and forth. Yeah.
No.
Just kind of move back and forth. I'll help you.
No, I'll help you. Fuck you.
So that's kind of a good sign. I mean, it's telling me he probably needs some of that tissue to be stretched out because I love it. I think it's a great adjunct for the other stuff we do. I feel like those are covering the majority of what is most accessible and like most of what you see. Tempering is it has been around for a while now.
Is this tempering?
So this is tempering, and when we talk about foam rolling, we talk about kind of like the tissue release and the myofascial release. In a lot of ways, tempering is just heavy foam rolling, or it's soft tissue work by a heavier PT. So just grab somebody that weighs 50 pounds larger than I do, and just have them kind of work on the body.
This is really heavy.
Very heavy. That's the lightest one. So we love it. We use it a lot.
Is it a two-man lift when you get to the big ones?
It's pretty close. Yeah. I mean, you definitely need some help getting the edges. It's definitely an area where I wouldn't advise just winging it and going and grabbing one of these, because we've had people come into the clinic, and if we would have just gone to this, like we could have caused some serious issues. So, there is a skill involved, and I think Donnie Thompson, who kind of founded and created these, he actually has PTs teaching this, because there is a lane, and like strength coaches technically and personal trainers technically are not allowed to like touch clients. So he really does a good job of explaining the pros and cons and when you would and wouldn't. But in a lot of ways, like this is just it's a heavier deep tissue massage, so you can kind of like lie in like a long sitting position and roll your quad. You can have somebody like roll your upper back, roll your hamstrings, your calf. You just have to really be careful with just going after tissue just for the sake of it. So
I mean, we've been doing this with barbells for a minute.
Right.
So now what we're doing is we're applying a better methodology for other body parts, which are harder to access with a barbell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just packaging it a little bit differently, but obviously if it's like an area where there's like swelling, if you were decelerating, you went to cut and your knee popped and now it's swollen, like don't roll your knee, go.
With 140 pounds?
Yeah, go talk to a provider. Even the setup, like there's techniques where, You know, you're not going to apply the same pressure with your femur hanging off the edge of the table, because that's not how the femur is designed to load. Like, don't put a long bone in a position where you're basically like kind of wishboning it. There is a
weird,
right? It's kind of got to put that out there.
I just followed what Theo said, and then I had this like, you know, compound tib fracture. I don't understand why.
It was weird. I had like a second knee, and
yeah.
yeah. So it's it just to kind of give you guys an idea. It is a thing. It is out there now. It's best when used by somebody that kind of knows how to evaluate the body. So, you know, having somebody evaluate and then kind of show you how to use it.
The next piece of adjunct therapy is from the sick and twisted mind of Theo Ballard.
In our current day, it's a lot of contention. I think obviously there's good content. Like everything that I've tried to put out so far is trying to be most applicable and help people out. Obviously, it's what you guys do too. But there's also a lot of content that induces reactions that anger, frustrate. It's very divisive. So what I found is
Facebook,
right?
In general.
In general.
Just every day.
Every day. Yep. Just turn that off. You know, if you're going to do any kind of treatment, don't try to treat and still get that same input coming in, because there is a response that your body is going to be, if you're exposing your body to stress, whether it's like visual, mental, your body's going to react systemically. Like your entire body's going to release cortisol. It's going to counter everything you're trying to do. So what I recommend is read or have a conversation. Put the phone down, stop texting, stop scrolling, put the news away. Just prep yourself, get your body in a better position. You know, mindfulness is a real thing, and that's sort of what we're realizing is inducing a parasympathetic response, like getting your body out of that fight or flight. It can be done with yoga, it can be done with sitting in a sauna, it can be done with reading, it can be done with just static stretching before you go to bed. So a lot of these like basic concepts that just help facilitate the end goal, which is just get better, help your body heal, help you be better. That's kind of what the books represent. So I like these books a lot. I try to read a few of the Daily Stoics. When I remember, it's like a day or two, I'll just try to read a few. And then obviously Tribe is an incredible book. And then James Gearing, new book he wrote. Just good stuff on perspective, and you know, we're all humans, we're all in this together.
Where does ice and heat tie into this?
Yeah, so cryo tank, it's the sub-zero, extreme cold for like 90 seconds. And I think the only thing that they've really found in terms of what is it doing is subjectively, some folks have said it feels like the muscle soreness goes away. And you can look this up. I mean, you could easily search like Google Scholar and see what the research says. And sometimes it's kind of tough to sift through, because the heat people and the ice people, they're kind of claiming different things, but all the research is showing that
4 more years.
Yeah.
4 more years.
Just watch that pendulum, because the people that are saying ice is bad now, like it's gonna swing back. So a lot of the electrical stimulation camp individuals will say, you know, ice is bad, it's not good for you, it kind of shunts the inflammation response. But no, I mean, ice is... Which
means their argument is the inflammation response is triggering growth hormone secretion, right? And that ice is inhibiting that growth hormone.
So if you're talking about training, yes, like if you're talking about like lifting in a weight room, icing immediately has been shown to like kind of decrease the circulation response of the tissue to the rest of the body and so forth, you know, like growth hormone from the brain. But in terms of recovery, like if you had an injury, not using ice, like people are saying don't use ice at all. It's like, well, that's great, maybe if you had like an $800 piece of equipment, but if you don't, like ice still helps. Like it does, it is soothing, it can reduce pain. You can ice somebody's ankle if it's swollen and measure it before and after, and you can see it gets rid of swelling. So, and like adding an ankle pumping, like there are ways to kind of have that argument. It's not just black and white. So yeah, ice is a real thing. The cryo tanks are where you have to be careful, because what I don't see happening is the parasympathetic response, the like nice kind of rest and recover.
When it's so cold, people are freaking out, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's dangerous, because if you have a condition where you have cold sensitivity and you don't know it, because you're gonna fill a form, you're gonna fill a waiver, of course, but maybe you don't know it, you could have a response. So
you're saying that the nice young lady with a nose ring who read my tarot cards and now works the front desk at the cryo place doesn't know what's best for me? From like a neurological standpoint?
Shocking, I know.
It is odd.
Again, subjectively, if you want to try it, they're around, go try it, see if you like it.
But just try it's not a scientific argument.
No.
And also, I'd like to point out, it seems that a lot of these things are virtue signaling about how far you're willing to take your recovery to show that you're committed to a training regimen. If your entire identity is around, you know, bodybuilding, like Mark Wahlberg, You know, like you're going to want to show people, like it's not embarrassing to take steroids if you're in that realm. It's not weird to try new things that nobody's had proven, because you're like, I'm so committed to my training, I'll do the craziest shit.
Yeah.
You know, like check me, I'm flying to Peru to do ayahuasca because I feel like it'll give me more training clarity. Why not? That where the dots don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, start with a cold shower in the morning for 5 minutes and feel how uncomfortable
it's awful.
that is. It's
Dude,
not pleasant. And then, yeah, maybe go up to the cold tub and get some ice
bath.
Yep. I mean, there have been ice baths around for years, and there is a range where that temperature stays, because they know if you go too low, it's going to reverse the effect. So, and then timing, like why are you doing it? When are you doing it? If you have the ability to try both out, I'd say try both out. But I'd say in terms of like recovery, if you're just training day to day, there really isn't a need for the ice, unless you're getting closer to a selection, a test that's going to be very physically and mentally demanding, and you need an edge. Then yeah, maybe start introducing that. But I would not have anybody.
Why wouldn't I want the edge all the time?
So it just depending on where you are. If you're in the hypertrophy phase and you're trying to induce an amount of stress that you want your body to adapt to, you want your body to adapt to that. You want your body to learn what that feels like. If you're shunting that with ice, then you're just kind of wasting what you're doing in the gym. As you get closer to training, that training is going to mimic more of what the training you're training for looks like. Yep. If that makes sense. So there's going to be a higher demand. You're probably going to be rucking more. You're going to be wearing gear more.
So to reduce the hypertrophic effect, because
you reduce the inflammation effect.
Yeah. So you don't want to be damaged.
Right.
Because you don't have time to recover from it.
Yep.
So you want to optimize where you are.
Yeah.
So that's saying it is good for recovery in short term, but it's not giving you the adaptations that you're looking to elicit from your training over the long term.
Yep, and it's all just phased. Where are you in your training?
Okay.
Yeah.
Even the dumbest idiot baby can understand that logic. So today we hit most of the wave tops of adjunct therapy in one way or another. The key takeaway here for you guys is, if your training is on point and your sleep and rest are on point and your nutrition's on point and you hate money, there's a few things we talked about that you can continue to look at as really optimal ways to kind of boost your recovery. There's some really useless shit in the recovery realm that is there, that have people that believe in it religiously, that may not be accomplishing what you want to accomplish. Most of you that are watching this aren't sleeping enough, aren't eating right, and aren't following like a really well-crafted training regimen. Don't waste your time on the things that aren't helping you. Focus on things that are going to help you. Dial in the important stuff first, and if you have the time and the mental bandwidth to kind of start incorporating these techniques, then do so. If you're injured, or if you feel pain, something coming on, and you go to a physical therapist and they utilize these tools in conjunction with other mechanical methods, those are the times when these things start to be beneficial. Because you see someone using them in a limited capacity doesn't mean that they are meant to be like a broad spectrum panacea for whatever woe you have going on. If you guys enjoyed this video and you feel like you got something out of us saving you a lot of money and useless techniques that should be prescribed by a practitioner, subscribe, follow, ring the bell, and if you want to entertain me with your idiot anecdotes down in the comments, please do, especially if you're Mark Wahlberg. Funny part is the people that buy this shit the most, like I end up borrowing it from my least in shape friends.